Okay guys, Imperial Vizier Zor'lok is a very heavy movement fight, but pretty much anytime you need to move extremely quickly. And for this reason I chose not to use Killjaden's Cunning because I find it pretty dangerous, at least for a first kill. For future kills where I'm more confident that the healer's going to be able to keep everyone alive, I might consider using it, but for at least for the first kill I decided it was safer to stick with Archimond's Vengeance. So when the fight's starting, you need to make sure you use a potion of the Jade Serpent before the pull. Make sure you're standing here on the Force and Verve platform because he's always going to come here first, at least on Heroic. As soon as the countdown timer is about to expire, precast a Haunt and get a Soulburn Soul Swap onto the boss as soon as combat starts. Start channeling Malefic Grasp on him, and as soon as you have your procs up, update it with a Fell Flame, and then again with another Soulburn Soul Swap before they expire. Now, just because your DPS might not be as high as the rest of the raid at this point, doesn't mean it's not going to pick up for the rest of the fight. This is quite a long fight, so your DPS is going to get higher and higher throughout the fight, and you'll be climbing up the meters slowly and slowly. So if you're wiping really early on and your DPS isn't very high, don't worry, it will peak up throughout the fight. Now on this first platform, you pretty much can stand still and nuke the entire time. The only time you need to move is when you need to stand in one of the bubbles for Force and Verve. When you do move, just spam Fell Flame on the boss as you move, or if you need to life tap, do that instead. But obviously, don't be careful about life tapping if your healers are struggling to heal the Force and Verve, for example. Now, here I'm using Dark Soul once on the pull, and it's going to come off cooldown again before this phase finishes. But I'm not going to use it here because it will not last. This phase will not last for its entire duration. I know the mob is going to die before Dark Soul finishes and I don't want to waste it. So I'm going to save it till the next platform. What I am going to do is make sure that I'm positioned very close to my gateway so that as soon as this mob dies I can immediately get to the other platform. I know that during the third Force and Verve I'm getting a Hand of Protection anyway, so I can literally be stood right next to it. I'm making sure that I'm Drain Souling the mob as it dies to get all 4 of my shards back, and then I'm stepping through the portal and getting ready for the Attenuation out. Don't use Dark Soul straight away because he's going to be using his Attenuation attack almost immediately once you get here, like you can see here. Now if you don't know how to dance from Attenuation properly, I do have a great tutorial on my YouTube page that tells you how to do it without risking death, so definitely check that out. Okay, so the first Attenuation phase is finished, so I'm popping Dark Soul, doing a Fell Flame to update my dots and casting an Agony, then a Haunt and nuking with Malefic Grasp. Keeping up Haunt, you can get 2 full Haunts off with nothing but Malefic Grasp channels during Dark Soul, and that'll give you a massive boost to your DPS. As you can see, I've just climbed up 7 or 8 places on the damage meter, and that's only going to increase. So in this fight, your damage is mostly going to come during your Dark Soul bursts. Now again, don't cast Haunt just before he's about to cast Attenuation, because you're not going to be able to DPS during it. Just save your shards up. Life tap as you run if you're confident in your ability to dodge. So, second Attenuation phase is finished. I don't have any shard procs, so I've not used Haunt yet. Just gonna stand here and nuke. I have a couple of procs, so I have got Haunt up, although I could have possibly done that a little bit more optimally. Now again, here, the Echo spawns and I put all 3 of my dots on him, do 1 Malefic Grasp cast, and then I use my Demonic Teleports, which I put down before the fight, to get to the Mind Control platform to allow me to DPS that one. Just save a few seconds that you would have had to spend running through the middle otherwise. So get your dots up, stand in position. On this platform it's similar to the first one, you only have to move in one instance, and that is if you get a green ball coming directly to the raid, which you can see happening right now. If that happens, make sure you don't get hit by it. If you're mind controlled like I am here, it doesn't matter, it's not going to kill you. Now we don't really have any good tools for breaking the mind control very quickly. I usually make sure my dots are kept up on the boss, and I try and get a couple of Sea of Corruptions off from him so that they instantly explode to try and help break the mind controls. If AoE isn't worth using for you, then Corruptions and Agonies on the targets with Malefic Grasps or just Fell Flame can work. Don't use Soulburn Soul Swap or Unstable Affliction, because Unstable Affliction is very bad. When your healers try to dispel after the mind controls end, they're going to get silenced and it's going to cause you some major problems. Now I've just done my 3rd Dark Soul phase, so trying to nuke as much as possible during the Dark Soul, keeping Haunt up time as high as I can, and getting as many Malefic Grasp ticks as I can while those Haunts are up. So as you can see, I've climbed to 4th place on the damage meter now, from 12th or 11th that I was at the start of the fight. Now, one thing you have to be very, very careful of with the mind controls, which you'll see I was affected by here, is that the mind controls have the tendency to turn Burning Rush on if you have the talent. Now, unfortunately, in this particular video, I didn't notice that for quite a long time. So that is definitely something you need to keep an eye out for. Just make sure that you have some kind of power aura to very easily see if Burning Rush is enabled, so that you can disable it if the mind control casts it for you. Okay, so the last phase is about to start, making sure my dots are still refreshed. I saved a couple of shards just to help increase my DPS during the burn. As soon as he lands, I'm popping my Doom Guard because I know we're about to Bloodlust immediately and I don't want him to miss the Bloodlust. So here you want to try and minimize your movement as much as you can. I have to stay hugged up with the raid, so there's a little bit of twitching around, which is not really ideal at all for DPS. What I could probably have done is just stand still and nuke a little bit more for the burn, but I do want to make sure that I'm close enough to the boss so that when he does attenuation I can get right in the wave. But looking back, I probably could have stood a little bit further back and minimized how much I needed to move during that Bloodlust. You won't get the full duration of Bloodlust off, you will have to do some movement during it, but again, that's just keeping just spamming Fel Flame as much as you can during that movement. Now as soon as that attenuation ends, you're probably going to get your 4th Dark Soul ready. Now again, stand in one of the bubbles because he's doing Force and Verve, and just stand still, nuke him as much as you can. He will almost certainly do mind control next to it. There isn't a lot you can do here. Shadow Fury is a great stun that you can use on them, which I do here. I'm more focusing on trying to crowd control rather than DPS, because other classes are much more suited to doing the actual DPS than we are. Here, now, dodging the rings at this point is extremely difficult. Well, extremely dangerous. You can do it and still DPS, but since this is a first kill, we're playing extremely safe and just hiding behind the pillar. So your DPS will go down if you do this, but it is a safer way to play the fight. Once you've got this on farm and you're more confident about staying out and DPSing, then by all means do that. One point to mention, when you do go hide behind the pillar, if you choose to hide behind the pillar when he's casting attenuation, you can still DPS him through the pillar. It doesn't block line of sight, as you can see. I'll show you in a second. Now this is the part of the fight where I kind of wished I had killed Jaden's Cunning, because there's a lot of times where I'm casting Drain Soul, I'm having to interrupt before a tick, which is not ideal. Whereas if I had KJC, I could just twitch a little bit and not interrupt. Make sure that you use your 2nd potion during this phase. You can either use it during Bloodlust or you can use it during the sub 20% Drain Soul phase. Either one works. During this phase, most of your DPS is going to come while he's casting Force and Verve. When you're stood in the little the little bubbles, the noise cancelling zones, the yellow sonic rings barely do any damage to you. They'll do about 15 to 20k, so you can just stand in the bubbles while they're up and not worry about dodging the sonic rings if you want to get some extra DPS on the boss. It's not going to cause any great deal of inconvenience to your raid or to your healers. And from then on out, it's just about avoiding the balls, trying to stand still as much as possible to get those DPS off. But this is a high movement fight. You're going to have to deal with the fact that there is some movement involved, and your DPS on this fight is not going to be as high as it is on other fights, but that doesn't mean you can't top the meters, because every other class has the same problem. Okay guys, that was it for my Imperial Vizier Zor'lok Warlock specific guide. If you like this guide, please rate, comment, and subscribe to the channel, or watch me live on twitch.tv/.